Urgent, Zaluzhny opens the gates of hell for Russia. London has agreed to this. Ukraine's victory is decisively coming to the surface. NATO troops are indeed entering. The stunning moment has arrived. A nuclear slap in Putin's face. The Iron General is leading the breakthrough. A missile strike on Moscow. Britain is putting its trump cards on the table. Mega weapon that will definitely knock the bunker dweller off his feet. This is more powerful than Tomahawks. Will Russia really not recover after such weaponry? All this is coming up next. Watch until the end. Greetings, this is Ukraine. Today I am Andriy Silakov and the latest events. The most powerful strike against the Kremlin from the heart of London. The former commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine and Ukraine's ambassador to the United Kingdom, Zaluzhny, has shaken the information space. The first Ukrainian defense giant, Ukrspec Systems, is officially breaking into Britain. Now the deadly drones that terrify the occupiers will be produced right under NATO's nose. This is the beginning of the end for Russia's hopes. The Iron General emphasized, while Russia tries to wipe out our factories with missiles, Ukraine is moving production to an unreachable zone. Our brilliant engineers are turning combat experience into perfect killing machines, and Britain is giving them complete freedom of action. Zaluzhny is confident that this is a strategic trap for Putin, one he can no longer escape from.
This is not a shift of the center of gravity away from Ukraine. This is the expansion of our joint capabilities and the creation of a second line of resilience, which guarantees uninterrupted production.
This is a historic breakthrough. The brain of Ukraine, the armor of Britain. Kyiv is moving production into the holy of holies of Western defense. Zaluzhny announced the creation of a comprehensive security base that has always changed the course of the war. According to him, this event has a strategic and even civilizational dimension.
For Ukraine, this project means stability and the ability for long-term planning. For Britain, this means strengthening its own defense industry, access to technologies proven in modern warfare, and the creation of jobs. This is an example of how combat experience can be quickly integrated into industrial solutions and national security.
But that's not all. The United Kingdom has announced a new aid package for Ukraine. As Reuters reports, the new package from the United Kingdom includes military, humanitarian, and energy assistance as well as the pursuit of justice. On
this somber anniversary, our message to the Ukrainian people is simple. Britain stands with you, stronger than ever. Despite all the noise in world affairs, this war remains the most important issue of our time. It raises the question, will Ukrainian and European freedom endure? Our collective answer is unequivocal. Russia will not win this war.
The new package is a continuation of the aid announced at the beginning of this month. In particular, at that time it was about allocating £500 million to support air defense and thousands of light multi-purpose missiles to protect against Russian drone attacks. Meanwhile, news is coming from London that could be a game changer. The United Kingdom wants to create ballistic missiles for Ukraine that are capable of reaching Moscow. This was reported by Reuters as well as the British publication The Sun, citing the UK Defence Secretary John Healey. The British government has announced a competition for the rapid development of a new ground-launched ballistic missile called Nightfall. A range of over 500 kilometers, a warhead of 200 kilograms, mobile vehicle launches, and the ability to strike targets at a depth that allows them to reach even Moscow from Ukrainian territory. According to The Sun, the missiles can be rapidly launched from mobile platforms. The launcher must hold at least 2 missiles and be able to launch within 15 minutes of arriving at the position. After launch, the crew must leave the area in less than 5 minutes. This is already the level of a new generation of operational tactical weapons. Back in September of 25, the Militani portal reported that London is considering transferring such missiles to the country after development is completed. Now, however, it seems the process is moving into the practical phase. What does this mean? If previously Ukraine was actively transforming drones and targets into strike systems, now we are talking about the potential strengthening of the ballistic component itself. This is already a different level of deterrence, a different depth of impact, and a completely different strategic signal. And also the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, announced an increase in support for Ukraine within the coalition of the willing, created jointly with partners. This concerns preparations for the possible deployment of international forces after peace is achieved in Ukraine. Within these multinational forces, a headquarters of 70 people is already operating for Ukraine, and the training of British troops is funded by the government in the amount of £200 million sterling. And the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, stated that the United Kingdom and France are ready to send their contingents to Ukraine. Each contingent will consist of 5,000 military personnel. At the same time, the question of where exactly these units will be based remains open.
There are different types of brigades, and in our understanding, up to 5,000 is considered one brigade. When we signed our declaration with all the members of the Coalition of the Willing, we understood that these two countries are already prepared to provide a brigade each.
The UK Minister of Defence, John Healey, hopes to become the first head of the department to send British troops to Ukraine to ensure peace. He stated this in a comment to The Telegraph.
For any government or Minister of Defence, there is no heavier burden than the decision to send armed forces on an operation to another country. I want to be the Minister of Defence who sends British troops to Ukraine, because that would mean only one thing. This war has finally ended.
In his comment to The Telegraph, Healey also assured that the UK government will continue to support Ukraine more decisively. In particular, the country's authorities plan to increase the volume of military aid and intensify pressure on the Kremlin with new sanctions.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Shock, a nuclear strike against Putin's plans. Britain and France are giving Ukraine the atomic bomb. NATO troops are entering Ukraine. The Kremlin is on high alert. Urgent, it's hard to believe. But it happened. The final countdown has begun. Has the West really gone all in? All or nothing? Watch.
A new attempt by the Russians to avoid negotiations. The Russian Security Council accused France and the United Kingdom of planning to transfer nuclear weapons to Ukraine.
Extremely alarming information was published today by the Foreign Intelligence Service, and there is no doubt that it is reliable. There is even an understanding apparently that in the future the appearance of nuclear weapons in Ukraine is supposed to be presented as a Ukrainian development, although without any doubt by Ukrainians. By definition, there are absolutely no possibilities for independent development without external assistance.
The information appeared in Russian intelligence in a strange way after the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, stated that France and the United Kingdom were ready to send contingents to Ukraine. In
our understanding, this is to 5,000 is one brigade. In our understanding, that's how it is for today. The United Kingdom and France officially, when we signed our declaration with all the coalition participants who were willing, we understand that these two countries are already prepared to provide a brigade each. And there are also signals from some other countries that are ready to strengthen Ukraine with their presence at the level of a contingent as well.
the first to announce the possibility of sending troops to Ukraine last year was the president of France.
At the moment, we have 26 countries that have officially taken on commitments to form support forces and deploy troops on land, sea, or in the air as part of security guarantees for Ukraine the next day, after the ceasefire and the arrival of peace.
A few days ago, the UK Defence Minister confirmed that he wants to be the one to send British troops to Ukraine because that would mean the end of the war.
We will be ready to ensure peace in the long term. This requires us to invest and prepare our forces. Keir Starmer stated that he is ready to see British troops on Ukrainian territory. And I have already allocated millions of pounds to prepare for a possible deployment of troops.
But there is just one thing. The Russians do not agree and most likely will never agree to such a clause in a peace treaty.
As for possible military contingents in Ukraine, this is one of the main reasons for drawing Ukraine into NATO. Therefore, if any troops start appearing there, especially now, during the course of hostilities, we proceed from the fact that they will be considered legitimate targets for destruction. And what if they are hit? The critical decisions that will eventually bring about a lasting peace. To a long-term peace, then I simply don't see any point in their presence on the territory of Ukraine. That's all. But
what difference does it make for Russia? Will Ukraine be a full-fledged member of NATO, or will it be a country on whose territory military centers of NATO member states are located? It's clear that Russia will never allow the inclusion in a peace treaty with Ukraine, if such a peace treaty ever appears at all, and I actually believe there won't be any treaty. A clause that would regulate the possibility of any foreign troops being present on Ukrainian territory. All the more so troops from an alliance that possesses nuclear weapons in the arsenals of its members.
And so it becomes a vicious circle. Russia will not agree to a treaty that includes provisions for foreign contingents in Ukraine, while Ukraine will not agree to peace without clear security guarantees.
I want to clarify this to avoid any misunderstanding. We are talking about security guarantees after a ceasefire. There is not a single country, a member of the European Union, that believes we should intervene in the conflict right now. We are also ready to participate and provide our own security guarantees. But all of this is impossible without Russia's consent, and most likely we are still far from that. And
is it possible that European countries are now fully prepared to send their troops into Ukraine without obtaining any formal consent from Russia? But Russia is being told clearly that these troops will be legitimate targets for the Russian army. I don't doubt that either. If the leader of the United Kingdom, France, or other countries is talking about the presence of their troops and is ready to take that risk, then they could just as well send their contingents today without waiting for the end of hostilities. But if they are not ready to take that risk, then they need to understand that even after the end of hostilities, their troops will not appear on Ukrainian territory. But that's the reality.
So it turns out that things are just as they are now. Europeans are ready to provide all necessary support, while the Russians set absurd conditions for this support to stop, all the while inventing yet another round of fake news.
The climax, which until yesterday was only whispered about. The Ukrainian Flamingo missile is making a loud statement about itself. And after a single launch, Russia is once again counting its losses. In Moscow, they are forced to admit that the air defense system is failing. Panic is seeping through even the official reports. Ukrainian forces are tightening the space for maneuver for the Kremlin ever more harshly. And on the horizon, yet another nightmare looms. Will this combination become the very turning point? More on this ahead.
The Ukrainian missile, which today is feared not only by our enemies, but thanks to its accuracy and low production cost, is even causing concern among Kyiv's partners. In February 2022, we asked our Western partners to close the airspace over Ukraine. In February 2026, now Europe is asking Ukraine to share its unique experience, how to do this on their own.
It's a very simple technology. Nothing complicated is needed here. It's all written down in the manuals. Everything is described step by step, how it's done. What's so complicated about it?
As it turned out, modern American and European technologies for air defense have a huge drawback. Their cost, even if technically there is no equal to Western weaponry, but considering today's realities of warfare, NATO would only be able to defend itself from enemy missiles and drones for a few days. The West, quite frankly, lacks the necessary funds for additional supplies, because each of their missiles is tens or even potentially hundreds of times more expensive than the drones it is tasked with shooting down.
Intercepting an Iskander costs over $6 million. That's the price.
And here Ukraine comes to the West's aid with the unique Flamingo missile.
We want to drop that cost, to $1 million, $1.5 million, so that intercepting an Iskander would cost that much.
With the help of the FP9 missile.
With the help of the FP7 missile.
The Ukrainian Flamingo is already demonstrating unprecedented effectiveness and accuracy, striking strategic targets in Russia. A missile created in the shortest possible time has become yet another major headache for Putin and his generals. Since the development is entirely domestic, the Ukrainian armed forces do not need any permissions to strike with the Flamingo, wherever they want and wherever it's needed. The only problem our developers have to contend with is scaling up production. So far, it has not been possible to produce enough missiles per month to meet the needs of the armed forces.
This is a strategic weapon. Unfortunately, as of now, you can't buy or launch strategic weapons the way you can with everyday items like pies. Not in the same quantities as with FPPR or SHMFP2, so that everyone can see the effect, and it reaches every household. But based on the months that have been completed so far, we see that it fully meets the objectives we set for it.
For now, there aren't enough Ukrainian missiles to cover all targets in Russia, and that's why we have to rely on our Western partners. Yes, the United Kingdom will develop a new deep strike ballistic missile for Ukraine.
We can state that first and foremost, we're talking about a missile that can be rapidly scaled and is a relatively inexpensive solution, since the UK government is specifically emphasizing that this should be a means that will be cost-effective, meaning it will meet the demands of the times, since we see that the armed forces of Ukraine and in general the entire security and defense sector need a great number of such means, and it cannot be too expensive.
As a result of the Nightfall project, the United Kingdom announced a competition for the accelerated development of ballistic missiles intended for combat operations under conditions of high threat and strong electromagnetic interference. The modern British missile will be able to launch from various platforms, carry out a series of launches, and leave its position within a few minutes. The system will be equipped with a 200-kilogram high-explosive warhead, distinguished by its high accuracy and a range of up to 500 kilometers.
This completely covers all the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine, and it also covers a significant part of the European territory of the Russian Federation. And at this depth, the enemy places its higher level headquarters, that is, starting from the brigade level up to the divisional level, as well as army and army group levels. These are also quite serious logistical hubs. These are places where fuel and lubricants, as well as ammunition depots, are concentrated. In
combination with the Ukrainian Flamingo, the British missile will be able to significantly reduce the Kremlin's and personally Putin's desire to continue their activities. Instead of missile strikes on peaceful Ukrainian cities, the bunker dweller will have to endlessly defend against the missiles of the Ukrainian armed forces.
The quantity and intensity. The work of our security forces, who use strike drones, including against strategic targets, exhausts the enemy's air defense forces, of the enemy forces. Furthermore, the strategic combination of advanced ballistic weapons and precision strike drones can already deliver a truly devastating blow to certain specific targets that are critically important to the enemy's overall military operations.
And it will only get worse from here, at least for the Kremlin. Ukrainian developers promise to reach the necessary supply volumes of ballistic weapons for the armed forces by the end of this year, while simultaneously creating more and more types of advanced weaponry.
In a year, that's ballistic weapons. In 2 or 3 years, it's the creation of an anti-ballistic air defense shield for all of Europe.
The Kremlin is in panic, Ukrainian ballistic missiles are opening the gates of hell, and Putin trembles at the very mention of their name. The world has never seen such mega weapons before. Urgently meet the new predator. While Russian propaganda feeds its people fairy tales, the armed forces of Ukraine have gotten their hands on a weapon of death. Fireworks on Red Square. Sapsan begins the hunt. Our legendary Ukrainian defense industry has played its trump card. Watch what happens next.
Putin wants the war to continue, so the strikes on Russia continue. They go on. Russia keeps burning. And all because Ukraine knows how to respond to aggression. Moreover, Ukraine continues to develop the very means with which it delivers retaliatory strikes. As it has become known, together with Germany, Ukraine has developed a new drone called the Vint quantum system. This is the Mission Rad drone, which has already been demonstrated during the visit of the Ukrainian delegation. This is the first Ukrainian-German joint production. It took only 6 weeks to produce this drone. Its advantages are a low price and the ability to manufacture it in large quantities. And very soon, it will be putting pressure on Russia's air defense systems.
Target drones are often used to test the capabilities of air defense systems, whether new ones are being recognized or to confirm the characteristics of existing ones. They are used for conducting exercises and training new personnel for air defense systems. Again, beginners who are being trained for an anti-aircraft self-propelled system or an anti-aircraft missile system or an anti-aircraft missile and gun system, ZRPK, they need to strike at something that is moving.
The tactical and technical specifications are still kept secret, but it is known that the drone will be launched from a catapult and is equipped with a jet engine that can reach speeds of up to 450 kilometers per hour. And as experts say, most likely it will make sure to carry a useful item with you at all times.
The addition of a specialized combat payload fundamentally transforms the aircraft as it directly alters the drone's primary mission objectives from simple observation to active engagement. This significant hardware upgrade means the system is no longer just a passive sensor, but a tactical asset capable of executing precise strikes, which necessitates a complete shift in its operational parameters and overall role on the modern battlefield. The drone is for multifunctional use. It is not merely intended to serve as a target drone, for instance, for domestic manufacturing within various European nations, most notably in countries like Germany. But furthermore, this system can also be equipped with a functional warhead and then utilized for combat purposes accordingly, for carrying out strikes at medium distances. So this drone is specifically for operations at medium range, against the enemy's rear area or against temporarily occupied territories or against the territory of the Russian Federation. The payload capacity could be 10 kilograms, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, or even as much as 100 kilograms. Accordingly, any drone target that we observe today could, as a direct result of these advancements, potentially even become a fully functional strike drone at some point in the near future.
Ukraine continues to develop its technologies and defense industry, and as has already become known, as many as 10 factories for the production of Ukrainian drones will open in Europe this year. Therefore, we will increasingly see retaliatory strikes against Russia. But it's not just about drones. On January 11th, the British authorities announced their intention to create a powerful ballistic missile, the Nighthawk, specifically for Ukraine. The statement from the British government notes that the new ballistic missile can carry a 200-kilogram warhead and has a range of 500 kilometers. And these are just the initial figures. As the UK Minister for the Armed Forces stated, London is firmly committed to providing Ukrainians with more weapons.
A safe Europe needs a strong Ukraine. These new British long-range missiles will allow Ukraine to stay in the fight and will make Putin worry.
But the Nighthawk is not the only missile being prepared for delivery to Ukraine. 6 European countries are developing another new cruise missile. Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Poland and Sweden have signed an agreement to develop it. According to Western sources, this project is known as OA 500+. The price per missile will be lower than the market rate. Moreover, the new systems are supposed to be intelligent enough to reach designated targets without manual control. As for who has the advantage in drone missiles, Ukraine or Russia, it is still difficult to say. But what is known is that the Kremlin clearly did not expect such resistance from Ukrainians, even in the 4th year of the war.
Through our defensive actions, we are simply exhausting the Russian occupation forces at the tactical, operational, and operational tactical levels. Although, as of today and in principle, even since 2025, the Russian Federation has not demonstrated any success at the operational tactical level. None at all. Even their subsequent strategic actions and their very next military maneuvers, specifically this major summer offensive campaign, did not clearly demonstrate that the Russian forces were truly able to achieve their goals. Furthermore, the execution of these plans remained quite inconsistent throughout the entire season. Cover the range of areas across Ukrainian regions that would have ensured them a breakthrough of the Ukrainian defense, a collapse of our defenses, or any other advances deep into our defensive lines. Nothing of the sort. They moved very methodically along forest belts, across fields, through villages that were practically reduced to ashes. Nothing on a global scale. And in principle, Ukraine now holds a dominant position as a country occupying defensive positions.
The exhaustion of the Russians is happening both at the front and in the rear. After all, as we have already seen, strikes on Russia's sensitive points do not stop. Ukraine is maximizing both partner assistance and its own defense industry. Flamingo is already destroying the largest ammunition depots in Russia's rear. Ukrainian Flamingos are also striking at training grounds. For example, Kapustin Yar, from which Russia launches Oreshnik. This is how the Flamingo flies. Refineries, factories, and military units are burning. The Ukrainian Sapsan missile system with ballistic missiles has entered serial production and systematic use. And here is the range of the Sapsan. Moreover, according to some expert assessments, Sapsan has an advantage in speed over the American ATAC-MS. And it can strike Moscow very easily. Some sources claim that Ukraine is already using these missiles, but information about where and how remains classified. Let's not forget about the Storm Shadow. And HIMARS, which, according to Russian television, are supposedly being destroyed in batches, but somehow never actually are. HIMARS still keep hitting their targets anyway. And Russian panic is most clearly visible on Russian TV. Because even there, they've started talking about how strong the Ukrainians are.
If Ukraine, just imagine for a moment, remains after the conflict ends, if the Kyiv regime stays, if this army remains, Europe will be rearmed and Ukraine will be accepted into the European Union. Believe me, in 5 years it won't be Germany, France, Italy, Poland, or anyone else running the European Union. It will be Ukraine running things there, because Ukraine will do it with full understanding of what it means.
The demilitarization that Putin wanted so badly to carry out in Ukraine has failed spectacularly. Now, strikes on Russian territory have become more frequent and more powerful because Ukrainians know how to respond to aggression.
What do you think about the latest events? Share your thoughts in the comments, like the video, and stay up to date with the main news. There's more to come.